It is a beautiful Saturday morning and it's 9 o'clock. Yes, it's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Good morning, everybody. I think I've got a corker of a show this week. I'm sorry if the boat's moving around. Take some seasickness tablets right now. But it is a beautiful morning outside. But before we get on with our weekend, let's enjoy some reviews. And first up, I have The Light by Chris Congreave. This isn't new, it's a sort of a re-release. In fact, Chris Congreave brought this out along with Dave Forrest and Full 52 back in 2010, 2011, something like that. So it's over 10 years old. And Dave Forrest went away from Magic for various reasons. He's come back and he's sort of relaunching Full 52 as well. And so once again, The Light by Chris Congreave is back. It is a card to anywhere style plot, but using a lighter. You have a card selected and signed and lost in a deck, and then you introduce your lighter, or the lighter's been in play beforehand. It doesn't matter. The lighter's been on the table the entire time. The card vanishes. You then open the lighter to show that there's a folded card inside. You then tip that card out, and it is, of course, their signed selection. Let me show you what you receive inside your package. Inside this lovely tin is a gorgeous chrome Zippo style lighter. It's really nice. It fit anyone's performing style, and it gives off a spark, but it doesn't really let out a flame. And inside here, you will see that there is a signed card in where normally the lighter fluid would be kept, and you tip that out, and it is their signed selection. It is a really nice prop to have. The tutorial is the original one back from 2011, and it's Chris Congreave talking to Ian Moran. Ian Moran's clearly used this prop a lot as well, and so he really does inject other thoughts and things throughout the tutorial. The tutorial's a whopping hour 15 minutes long, which for a traditional card to impossible location might seem excessive, but this is really, really quite versatile. And because Chris has got a lot of friends who are good workers, they've obviously had this and they've come up with slightly different handlings, and that's all covered throughout the tutorial. You also get a lot of performances of Chris performing this live, genuine performances in sort of pubs and things like that. And of all the variations that you've got with this lighter, it also includes all of the lines. And Chris starts off usually performing this, obviously have the card signed and selected. He might mention the lighter, he might mention how it's a shiner, he might mention how you can use it to glimpse cards or things like that, just so that people know that the lighter exists and it's sort of in play on the table. And then you might do something like an ambitious card or a card to pocket, or a mixture of both. I mean, this is a card to anyway, so it's the climax of any signed card selection routine that you already do. You do get watching Chris perform is really nice, how professional performs it and how entertaining it is. You also get a few nice lines with the lighter that you don't normally get with other card locations, which is sweet. Chris does also teach his ambitious card and various other routines, the card to pocket and things like that. It's the tutorial's strangely dated in a way, because now I've noticed watching this one how much hand holding goes on with the tutorials. There aren't so many over the shoulder shots here. It's not quite as clear. So if you've got a little bit of knowledge of card magic, you'll be fine. But it doesn't really hold your hand, but it does run through everything. So you've got to kind of expected to know a few of the very basic card sleights, or what the terminology is. And the real big sleight with this is folding the card so that it will fit this sort of shape. So you're not really doing a traditional Mercury card fold. you're doing more of a folding it into sixths. Chris does it in his pocket, which is probably the best way of doing it. He does run through that really quite clearly, obviously not in his pocket because you wouldn't be able to see anything, but he runs through it openly, and it's a fairly easy card fold, and obviously you don't have to hide it or rush it too much because you're doing it in your pocket. If you want to know more about how you do that fold, for clarity, it is in Expert Card Technique, which is one of my copies here, just one of my copies, and it is in page 303, I think, in there. And yeah, you just do it in your pocket so you can practice it a lot, and that's really what you want to be doing. If you're going to be doing this, it's the fold that you need to practice. The rest of the sleights are pretty much run of the mill. You can palm it to get it into your pocket, which is what Chris does. There's plenty of misdirection throughout the routine and the fun and introducing the lighter and so on. So palming a card, you can do it when there's no heat on you, but there are no palm versions as well, which he sort of discusses with Ian and so on about how you can get the card to your pocket without having to palm it. So that's really nice if you're scared of palming, and really just practice the fold. You can just put you're going to go through a few cards practicing it, but just put a card in your pocket and practice folding it. Try to get the minimum amount of movement, and obviously try and do it reasonably quick. You don't want to be dawdling there too long, and I probably wouldn't be practicing it in the playground, but other than that, it is a very simple trick to perform, and a really, really powerful one. The lot of the tutorial is spent giving the various switches as well of how you dump it out of the lighter and show that the lighter is now empty and so on. I can't really say too much about the mechanics of how this works. So you get Chris's handling of that. You also get Ian's handling of that, which is more of a dump, which I kind of prefer. Just laughing at the word dump, sorry. And I kind of prefer that shaking it out. I like that a lot more than Chris's, but both fly. Gary Jones has a method of doing it as well, which is really nice. So you've got a lot of variety. There's something really for everyone, so you can take your preference, and none of it is difficult at all. And the tutorial has a sort of feel of two people sort of sessioning and bouncing ideas back from each other, which is great. And it's a very, very versatile prop, so it doesn't have to be a card. You can actually change what is in here, so it doesn't have to be a red pike card, or a different color. It can be a note as well. And actually, what I did realize was, if you get someone, it's going to be signed, obviously, but because of how much can be seen, you can actually have it face out if you force the card. So you could say force the six of clubs, have them sign it, and then when you pull this out, they'll clearly see that it's a six of clubs but not their signature, and then you can take it out, show that it is actually their signed six of clubs. You can do it with money as well, which Ian has a lovely routine with the money, and obviously introducing the lighter. Fire and money don't really go together, sort of routine. And that's really well taught as well. So it's give you lots and lots of ideas for what to do with this. Money nowadays, it's very hard to borrow notes, isn't it? It's getting less and less people carrying it around as we're all going down the whole digital cards or Apple Pay, which is a bit of a shame. And also polymer notes might make it a little bit trickier to do. So you might want to have to use a little bit of tape or a little bit of glue to make sure everything keeps its shape. But certainly possible if that's something you want to go down. You can also have a prediction in here, anything like that, which could be written on paper, so you can have a bit of fun there. It's a really nice first time. What I like about it is, for a card to impossible location, it's nice, it's small, and it's quite organic. And like I say, there's a little bit of byplay Chris does with a joke about the lighter, which is good. And they're just ways of introducing it. Smoking has obviously gone out of favour. There is an e-cigarette style routine actually as well, if that's something you want to sort of play with, smoking and the lighter. I would probably try and distance myself away from smoking. And one of the highlights for me on the tutorial, which sort of got slightly dusted over, is a card under lighter style routine, obviously ending up with the card inside the lighter. I really quite liked that. Dave Forrest actually teaches a sort of equivoque style routine where you can get down to the card that's in the lighter, or maybe you're off by one, who knows. And that's an interesting take on it. Perhaps you might want to develop that. But I really do like the card to impossible location plot. And this is a nice, novel, very unexpected place to find the card. It's in view the entire time. You're not touching it at all. So it really does feel very, very amazing when it does appear inside here. The fact it's got their signature on it. And the illusion of the empty case is really, really good as well. It's not examinable, but you display it so fairly. It's unquestionably empty. I like it because it's organic. I like it because of its size, and it's a natural thing to be carrying around, perhaps a little bit less now. And the lighter and the fire bring in elements of humour. It's not cheap, but you are getting a real quality item that has been gimmicked and nicely finished. It is The Light by Chris Congreave. It's $67.99. Next up, we've got Hyper Bent Elation by Daryl. Yes, Daryl, the magician's magician, is back. This is another thing from Murphy's, who've sort of bought his back catalogue. And this is a really quite interesting effect that leaves your participants or your audience with an impossible souvenir. You take two cards and they are signed both on the face and the back, both of them. You then hold them together, grab a pair of scissors, and you make these three sort of cuts, two on one side, one on the other, and you fold the card, give them a little bit of a twist, and you'll see that now what the two faces of the cards are now on one card and the backs are now on another, and they've still signed. It reminds me very much of Roy Walton's Card Warp, again, where you leave them with an impossible sort of souvenir, but there's no setup here. You actually sort of do everything out in the open, which is really, really nice. The tutorial is by Javier Funmeja, and he runs through it in a super clarity style of how to make the cuts, where to do the cutting, how to do the folding. And there are some routines that are easier. So there's sort of several versions of it, and they all sort of end up in much of a muchness, really. But whether or not you force the cards to start off with before you have them signed, whether you can just take out the jokers and say, let's do something with the jokers, it's up to you. It depends on your level of skill as to whether or not you want to do any sort of card forcing or anything like that. But Javier does teach everything you need to know how to force a card in the simplest, easiest way. I'm not really sure whether it's necessary to force the cards or just grab two cards at random or the jokers, because the signing procedure using a slightly discrepant move looks so clean and clear, and because they're signing everything, it's not as if there's any suspicion on the cards being iffy at that point. With some of the simple sleights that Javier teaches you, you can be slightly more convincing, but whether or not you're fooling them anymore, I don't know. I've said this before, if you fooled someone, can you fool them anymore? You know, they're fooled. So I'm not sure it's really worth making that extra effort because it is so clean anyway. And really, this is all about how you present it, what your premise is going to be, whether you're sort of entering some sort of twilight zone or anything like that. You know, it's the scripting that's going to make this interesting, plus what they're left with, which is this sort of strange bent cut signed cards that have morphed together in an anniversary waltz kind of way. Inside here you get your gimmicks. You get about 24 gimmicks to use, but these are easily replaceable very, very cheaply. So it's quite a cheap trick to do, even though you're destroying two cards every time. And talking of destroying two cards every time, Javier has a one card version, which is sort of a, you know, again, similar to Anniversary Waltz. So you have two cards selected, two cards signed, and then they become one back to back with the cuts and the folds as in Hyper Elation. It is an interesting effect. I think how much fun it is and how good it is really going to be down to you and how you present it. And I wish there was spent more time discussing sort of the various ways you could present it to make it more interesting and powerful, rather than just a sort of topological quirk. It's super easy. It's really well taught. It's quirky for sure. It is Hyperbent Elation by Daryl. Is $25.99. And now it's the return of Matthew Wright with Swiper. This is Matthew's new take on Out of This World by Paul Curry, which is so old I've really forgotten. It's probably about 70, 80 years old. And Matthew's made it more modern by turning it away from cards and into a sort of dating app style routine. There are dating apps out there, I don't know if you know, but they're called Tinder and Grindr and Bumble, and people today, they use these to find the love of their life. They're sort of the roller disco of the 80s, but they're now all on your phone. You give your participant 26 cards, each with a picture of a person on, and they get to decide whether they go into the left part or the right part, depending on whether they think they're a match or not a match. And they all get dealt through, and at the end you turn them over and show that on the backs of one set they're all say matched, on the backs of the other they all say no match. And then the cards get mixed up again and they're whittled down to just one final card, and that person is shown to match the person that has been in a prediction envelope in full view the entire time, which is a really nice kicker. Let me show you what you get. So you get all of the cards. So these are the profile cards. They're nice, they're clear pictures. There's a nice variety. What you do, you get 26 men and 26 women. So your participant gets to choose whether they want to try and match up with a man or a woman. And these cards are subtly coded as well, which will help you with the routine. And there's a subtle marking as well, which helps you with the kicker. Which is really nice. The actual cards, they're not bicycle stock. They're sort of slightly plasticky, smooth cards, which gets it away from a card trick. You don't really want this to feel too much like it's a plain old card trick, and make more of the fact of the pictures and whether the person's drawn to that person or not. I think Matthew's missed out a little bit of a trick. It'd be nice if there were some profile details down here that you might be able to draw their attention to, you know, their sort of hobbies, their likes, dislikes, things like that, or what type of person they're looking for. And on the back you can see it says it's a match or no match. So that's how they look. And you have two cards with perfect match on the back, which is for the kicker ending. It's really nicely produced. They'll last. The handling is very, very simple, and I haven't actually seen this before. I don't know if it's Matthew's method or whether he got it from somewhere else. What is also nice, I must say, that they're only doing it with 26 cards, so it's a lot quicker than your traditional Out of This World. And unlike Without This World, where there's nothing really to go on as to why you're deciding whether it's red or black, with this, you know, you can ask them to really sort of look at their face and maybe describe why they're making it into the match or the no match pile. And that really gives the trick some sort of built-in entertainment. And you're probably, you know, if you're doing it with a group of people and one person's doing it, and there'll be people making comments all the time. So it's very entertaining routine, and it's a very fun routine to do. There is one bold move, but it's done on an offbeat. The attention isn't on you, and if you do it casually, it will fly by. So really don't worry about it. Just relax, get on and do it. And I really like the kicker ending. I think it's really strong. Before this, I was a big fan of the trick Genetics 2 by Sean Goodman. This has a similar vibe to it, and I kind of not sure which one I prefer more. It's torn me. It's torn me between the two. I do like the idea of a dating app. I do think people will get really, really involved with it when you're performing it as well. What is nice about this is it keeps the best element of Out of This World, and that is the fact that the participant is dealing the cards. They're handling them and they're making all of the decisions very fairly, very freely, and that just makes it such a powerful trick. It's strong magic and it's a lot of fun. It is Swiper by Matthew Wright. It's $20.99. And before I forget, before I go any further, I feel a little bit self-conscious about doing this. It's a bit of a weird thing, but due to popular demand, oh, you've all been asking for it. Oh, you have. On the website, there is a new product. It is the Monster Magic Mug. Look at that. Hey, isn't it gorgeous? It is a perfect mug, and obviously you are limited by your imagination. You can have tea in here, you can have chamomile tea, Earl Grey, a coffee, a latte, hot chocolate, any sort of infusion will go fine in this mug and taste delicious. It is, it's, I'm kind of proud of it. What more can I say? It's on the website now. It is $14.99. It's the Monster Magic Mug. And now it's time for the big release of the week. So put your fingers in your ears because it's a new release by Craig Petty. When I watch Craig Petty, he goes right to my head.
And I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Check shirts and tattoos and everything he says.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Yes, it's Evoke. This has been sort of, marketing's been dribbling out. There's been a lot of interest. Craig was at the London Magic Convention and he showed it to a few people, including myself. It's hard to say exactly what the effect is here because there are so many options. What Craig has done is taken, I guess, a traditional deck of cards and made them into an almost ultimate mentalist's tool, prop, utility device. There is so much going on with these cards. It is incredible. And the idea is, he calls it the inspiration deck because you're, instead of having, let me show you. The cards come in this sort of little slip styly case. This case is printed and designed to help you out in a way so you don't have any tricky memory work and stuff like that, which is very nice, very thoughtful. I don't think you're going to need it. There is really very, very little to remember. It's not difficult. I'm going to come to the tutorial and the 6 days worth of stuff. It's about 5 hours long, I think, the tutorial. Very Craig Petty like, but you can understand why with this. It's a real project, and Craig's idea was really to get away from the ordinary faces of cards that are nondescript and mean nothing to anybody, and to use emotions or feelings instead, so that you can build a connection with your participant, or they're just more relatable than just a number and a suit. And that really was sort of the germ of the idea. And that's really genius because this doesn't feel like you're doing card tricks with this. It feels very different. Let me just show you the cards. So the cards, each card has a picture on it, a feeling or an emotion, a quote, and the name of the person whose that quote is by. And you go through, got anxiety, boredom, confidence, and you see that these are all, a lot of them are in colour, grateful, and then you have the sort of negative emotions, which are in black and white. So you've got nervous, rage, vanity. So you have a mixture of positive and negative emotions. And I think they genuinely do look like sort of the motivational cards that you might get in W.H. Smith's, for example. So they feel and look very genuine. And on the back, this is where, gosh, they just didn't know where to stop. They're designed by Phil Smith. The back of these cards are marked. Just about everything on here, you're virtually reading the back. It's almost like you've got Tolstoy's novels written on here. They tell you so much. All of the information that's on the front of the cards is pretty much given away on the back of the cards. And I promise you, despite so much information being hidden, once you know the secret, will be able to see everything as clear as day. But honestly, when I first got these cards, I couldn't see it. really couldn't see it, and I knew it was there. When you're performing this, obviously your audience aren't going to know that the backs hold any secrets at all, so they're not even going to be looking. But it's a very brilliant, genius back design. The emotions run from A to B, so you've got anxiety at the start, and I think zany is the last one. So you've got a cyclic stack going on as well, which gives very properties to a lot of card tricks too. It's also a one-way back design. I think that bit was just by chance, but I do like the one-way back design principle. I've used it quite a lot in the past, so I like that a bit. And it doesn't really get brought up. Despite the 5-hour tutorial, I think I'm probably the only person who's most excited about the one-way back design. Plus, with the pictures, it is also a Quran style deck. I mean, there are so many principles in here. They're not Svengali. That's probably the only thing I can think that they're not. There's also a sort of built-in book test using the quotes as well, along the lines of mother of all book tests, which is probably the best, most popular method out there. And that doesn't require too much fishing either. It's very clever. You can also define which celebrity made the quote, thanks to Phil Smith's stupid principle, which is actually really clever. I would love to come up with something that's missed out, but I can't. Every detail on these cards is useful. The tutorial is split into several videos instead of chapters. They're all about an hour or an hour and a half long, and you start off with Craig just introducing the deck and all of the principles, and that takes a good hour. And also a little bit of the history and where he got the idea from, which is really nice. The next two sections feature Pete Turner, and Pete Turner is a serious mentalist. He is really hardcore, and I wasn't expecting to really get on with any of his material. It starts off, he does very strong, very extreme mentalism routine, the sort of 100th monkey routine. So there are two sort of bonus cards here, which will help you if you want to do some sort of NLP style with the anxiety or whatever, shrinking, or a sort of 100th monkey style routine. But then he teaches some really nice, I suppose, sort of traditional sort of card tricks of an ESP color matching trick, which is really good. And what was amazing was watching Pete perform it and his tips on how to change what is essentially a card trick into some strong, serious mentalism. These cards really do help because of the pictures and the emotions, but Pete's teaching of how to elevate it and get away from the mechanics and turn it into mind reading is a mentalism is really fascinating, and will elevate pretty much any card trick that you do. If you did this with normal cards, with Pete's teaching, you'll end up with a much better performance. With these cards, you get something really special. And then he does Out of This World. Yes, it's another version of Out of This World. But with these, it's great because you're changing them from negative emotions to positive emotions. Again, card subtleties built in to the trick, which just shows that Pete really does know an awful lot about magic in general, as well as how to get into someone's mind. And there's a lot you can learn just by watching him. And he and Craig chat around and have a little bit of a session and really talk about the cards and just how powerful emotions are and how to get that connection with people. It's a great couple of hours of teaching of how to just be better at magic, it seems. Absolutely gold dust. And then you've got the next video, which is Peter Nardi of Alakazam. I remember on Cube 52, his section was my favorite, and he does a very similar thing here, and it's about an hour 40 minutes. It teaches about 6 effects. There's another ESP matching routine on there. There's a poker deal, which is really interesting, because instead of getting the winning hands, you separate the positive from the negative, based on Paul Gordon's handling from his Gold Dust DVDs. You've also got an oil and water style routine, and then you have a liar's poker routine, which is what I really like because it can involve sort of 4 or 5 people, and that is where you deal the hands out and they each think of one of the cards in their hands and they shuffle them. It's really, really free. It's based on a trick by John Mendoza. I can't remember what the trick was actually called, but I think it's in the Book of John from the late 70s. Darwin Ortiz brought a version out in the early 2000s as well. Really, really good effect if you want to involve more people. And again, because they're not just thinking of a card, but they're thinking of an emotion, it is that much more relatable. It's a great section. It's full of ideas. It's called the Inspiration Deck, but just what you can do with it is inspiring. And then you've got a few hours of Craig himself as he runs through so many things that you can do with this deck. There's sort of 12, 15 tricks. Feels almost non-stop. From predictions to drawing duplications, and then he does a lot of different card effects as well, taking traditional card effects like Jazz Aces, Peter Kane, Di Vernon's Triumph, Doc Daly's last trick of Doc Daly, a nice little biddle trick, ambitious card, and how it becomes something slightly different when you're dealing with pictures and emotions rather than playing cards. So much there. I can't possibly break it down. You've got, emotions across. I mean, they're cards, so just about any card trick can be done with them. And that is possibly one of the things to really think about it. If you've ever done a card trick where you've started asking someone to think of the color of the card, whether it's a high card or a low card, do that with this inspiration deck. Do that with Evoke, and you've got something a little bit special. And then the last section is an hour 15 minutes with Ian Rowland. If you don't know Ian Rowland, he's written several books on cold reading. He worked with the FBI, although he doesn't like to talk about it. Or maybe it was the CIA. I'm not sure, can't remember. I'm sure he'll remind me next time I see him. And he teaches some wonderful routines as well, including a little thing about pin pricking, which is a great thing to discover and to play with. Something I'd long forgotten about. And so really, really nice to have that included. And he's got a great routine called Finds Love, and one that's sort of based on Gemini mates as well, which is really, really good. And then some routines that require a little bit of busking, a little bit of thinking on your feet, which are usually done with cards, but because you're doing it with emotions and pictures and things like that, it just becomes something entirely different. What I really liked about Ian's tricks was just sort of how hands-off they feel, how casual the cards can be handled, how free everything is. Yes, sometimes that's because it involves busking, but even the surefire tricks, if you watch Ian's performance, there's very little sort of card handling that's noticeable. So it all feels like it's being done through the mind or through intuition. And that is a great way to round off the project. The deck design, the cards, everything they can do is simply incredible, but the teaching will really, really get you excited. There is something for everybody. Even if you're more of a card person than a mentalist, you will get something out of this. If you've got a few card skills, that's great. If you just want some self-working stuff, that's great too. I'm not 100% sure that absolutely every trick needed to be included. Perhaps it could have been edited down. Sometimes you just want to know which are the best tricks to do with it. At times it is a bit like giving someone a deck of cards and asking them to show you every trick that they know. I could go on, but you don't need a 5-hour review when you've got the tutorial to watch. That is Evoke by Craig Petty.